Welcome to another edition of the Big Cast. My name is Glenn Sarvati on behalf of the Best Innovation Group, where we like to do cool things with financial technology. And today we've got a conversation with Stephanie Prebish and Devin Marsh from Nacha, talking about the upcoming Nacha Payments Conference in New Orleans in just a couple weeks at the end of April, as well as the growth of same-day ACH and some really impressive statistics that are coming out, and what the story may be around that, what's driving that kind of effectiveness of that network. You can always find out more about the Best Innovation Group by checking out our website, big-fintech.com, or following us on the various channels, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, etc. Here's a promise for you. You're not going to get too many places these days. There will be no tariff talk in this episode for a variety of reasons. One, you're hearing plenty about it elsewhere, but more importantly, the story's moving too fast. So by the time you get around to listening to this, the fact pattern may have changed. And frankly, even if we had the fact pattern that we have today, or probably the one we'll have in a few days, there's so much uncertainty around it. As we know, markets hate uncertainty. And until the smoke clears and we start seeing some level of stability around this, it's obviously worth watching. It's fascinating to watch. It's disturbing to watch. But I'm not sure it's all that actionable at this stage of the game. So with that, let's let that one aside and talk about something else that was a breaking news item that just popped up on Friday and really got totally overshadowed by the T word, as they say. Jim Nussle, the head of America's Credit Unions, announced that he will be retiring. No date set for the retirement yet, so he's allowing the board to have some time for a thorough search and an appropriate transition. It's pretty interesting. This is happening just a little bit over a year after the merger took effect between CUNA and NAFCU to make up America's Credit Unions, and almost exactly 20 months after the merger was officially announced in August of 2023. It also marks almost exactly 1 decade in the role for Jim Nussle, so the symmetry of that is nice as well. It's, probably that's the kind of job that I'm not sure how you can really do for much more than 10 years. So kudos to Jim. It's been an interesting road. I know Korn Ferry has been engaged to lead the search for a replacement. I will love to see that job description. Talk about a thankless task. Well, the thankless task in recruiting and also what the profile is going to be. This is a tough job to fill in today's environment. I'm very curious to see which direction. I mean, Jim obviously came out of the halls of Congress. A politician would be another interesting choice, although figuring out what those affiliations and the perceptions of people's allegiance might be is even more fraught than ever these days. A very well-connected lobbyist might make sense, the way CUNA and America's Credit Unions and NAFCU have been working recently, or a veteran credit union executive. I personally think that may be the best choice of all, but I'm open to of thoughts on that one. I'll be very curious. I think it's really a matter of finding the best individual who may actually fall within any of those buckets. But it'll be fascinating to see where this heads. I got a feeling it's not going to be a quick transition. Something tells me that this is purely conjecture on my part, but GAC will be rolling around again in early March, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of the coming out party for the new person's first real opportunity to be out there in the marketplace. I mentioned also that another piece of non-T word news, another piece of breaking information last week will be the focus of this week's CU Town Hall coming up on Wednesday, April 9th, if you're happening to be listening before then. That will be happening on, again, Wednesday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, our bi-weekly lively, live, and interactive conversation. What John Best is going to be digging into this week is the FDIC's announcement that they're relaxing the rules around crypto and the ability for banks to hold crypto. Again, this is FDIC, so it doesn't exactly directly relate to the credit unions yet, but I think it's a safe assumption that it will be based on the way the administration has been moving in that direction. And by the way, with everything else going on in the economy the last couple of days, we can check off another square from our bingo cards, because it was very, very brief on Monday, April 7th, but Bitcoin fell below 75,000, which was one of the things that we were watching out for that might happen at some point of the year. It's obviously well down from its earlier highs, but I don't think too many people expected it to fall that far that fast. Again, CU Town Hall, it's free to join, but you do need to enroll or register in advance. And you can do that by visiting the CU Town Hall website. And if you're listening to this after April 9th, you can go to that same website and you'll find a replay of the roughly hour-long event, as well as the archives of past episodes as well. With no further ado, let's get into our primary conversation today with Stephanie Prebish and Devin Marsh from NACHA, starting off talking about the upcoming, as I said, the Payments Conference in New Orleans. I'm here with Stephanie Prebish and Devin Marsh. They're both from NACHA, and I will be seeing you both in person about 3 weeks from now at Smarter, Faster Payments in New Orleans, starting on April 27th through the 30th. Seemed like a great chance to check in and kind of catch up on the plans for the conference, as well as kind of the operational statistics, some really interesting things, particularly on same-day ACH going on lately that I thought would be great to dive into. So thanks to both of you for taking the time to join.
Thanks for having us.
So Stephanie, why don't I start with you, since we got the conference coming up, and I know that's your territory. This definitely, I mean, a lot of times when you see a conference start on a Sunday, you think, okay, it's just kind of the warm-up phase. This one definitely does not look to me like one you want to show up late for. The Sunday agenda strikes me as really packed. I noticed AI is a recurring, not too surprisingly, it's a recurring theme in the agenda, and a lot of really great topics coming in there. I'm curious, was that a function of the number of speaker submissions you got, indications of audience interest, or maybe kind of a combination of the two?
Yeah, Glenn, we're really excited about our Sunday lineup this year. It is jam-packed with sessions. We have a little joke around NACHA that Sunday and Wednesday are real days, and this year it's a real day. So we're really, really thrilled. It's funny that you'd mentioned AI specifically, because we have created an entire new track this year on AI driven solutions. And it was because of the amount of proposals we received during the planning process. There are so many different ways to look at AI through rules and regulations and fraud and cybersecurity. So we really took that and tackled it from every aspect.
Yeah, it obviously, I mean, there's so many use cases for that one. What's the total number of sessions scheduled over the 4 days? Do you happen to know?
I actually do know it's 139 sessions over 4 days.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Sunday's sessions start at 1 p.m. or noon. So especially anybody coming from the east who picks up an hour along the way, you still got time to travel in the morning, probably.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything starts at 1 Central.
Okay. Yeah, another topic that I find well represented on the agenda is pay by bank, which I find a really interesting model and one that seems like a kind of a natural use case for ACH to me. Any sense, have you heard much about the demand or the level of curiosity around the whole notion of pay by bank?
Yeah, pay by bank is something that's been on our radar for a good while, but we've really stepped it up a notch this year with the conference offerings, but also with the creation of a new project team within our Payments Innovation Alliance, looking specifically at pay by bank. And we're starting with the basics. We want to come up with a definition of pay by bank, because so many people look at it so differently. So we really want to make sure that the industry is all speaking the same language. So we start off on Sunday with a what is pay by bank session, and then we build from there.
Yeah, I agree with you. The pay by bank is just one of those terms. It sounds very intuitive, but it can mean very different things to different people, especially when there isn't like an exact, use case out there that everyone's looking at saying, aha, that's it. Yeah, I know how, an undertaking a conference of this size obviously takes an awful lot of advanced planning. And you can't exactly be throwing sessions together at the last minute. How do you balance that off? I mean, right now the regulatory environment is in such flux, and I'm guessing you probably didn't realize it would be in this much flux even at the time you started planning out your sessions. How do you manage to keep things organized at the same time of keeping things very timely and speaking to I mean, some of these things like banking as a service, it's open banking. I mean, they literally, the storyline could be changing like up to the day or two before the conference.
That is 100% true, and I think even more so this year than any other year I've been involved in the conference.
Agreed.
When we start planning the conference, we are picking sessions in August of the previous year. So we're doing it with a little bit of a crystal ball, to really put in our mindset, is this something that people are going to care about next April? So we run our first call for presentations, back in, I think we opened it last June. And then we do a second round call for presentations that ends generally in December. But of course, as you know, things changed in January. So we've been really on top of everything, going through, really looking carefully at the agenda, and being in super close contact with our speakers to make sure that what they had intended to talk about in August when we selected their session is still something that's relevant, and that they want to talk about today.
Yeah, I would think that if you've got the right subject matter experts on stage, the topics probably haven't changed. It's the latest tone and direction of the topics. And if they're the experts, they should know how to pivot on those, as long as they've got the latest and greatest. And who else is going to? That makes sense.
Yeah.
I noticed cryptocurrency, making a return on the agenda as well. To me, it's not quite as intuitive how DeFi interacts with ACH. I mean, any thoughts about, and that's one of the beauties of the conference. I think people, I think they've kind of learned finally this is not just an ACH conference as we've been talking about, but as I say, crypto falls pretty far outside that space. How do you think about that?
Yeah, Glenn, you said it. We are not just an ACH conference. We are encompassing the entire payments industry. When we sit down with the conference planning committee, in August of the previous year, we go through and we do a wish list of every topic that we think needs to be covered in order to make this a successful show. And when we are looking at crypto, we're looking at, of course, what's happening in the ACH, but the regulatory, 1033 was a big thing, when we started planning. And like you said, we've had to pivot a little bit with that. So it's really just getting the right group of people together to form the conference planning committee to really think about what they want to hear about. And we try to represent the entire cross industry.
Any other twists to the agenda? I've been going, I've lost count. I'm not sure how, at least 10 of, but back when it was still called Nacha payments, but and anything new and different about this year that you can point to that in specific people should be watching out for?
Well, we, in addition to the content, we have a huge bustling exhibit hall. We've introduced a couple of new areas in the hall this year. We're really trying to make an effort to offer quality networking events so that people can really grow their individual networks. We figure that if we can continue to do that, we're passing along to the next generation of payments professionals. We're passing along to folks within an organization that may not be as familiar with the conference. So we're really working on trying to make sure that we're reaching everyone. We
Yeah,
also, I'm sorry.
no, you go ahead.
A couple of years ago, we really started making a push for our payments attorney friends, and we've offering CLE credits for our payment attorneys. So really, we're looking at audiences that may not traditionally have been the people who come to the payments conference, and we're making inroads in all of those areas.
Right. And I know, I've had, it's always those happy accidents, just, sitting down next to somebody and having a conversation, over breakfast or lunch or something with somebody that I wouldn't have normally run into, somebody from an extremely small institution, someone who's relatively new to the space, and as well as, old friends that I haven't seen in a while that I always run into. So it's a great mix. I agree. Devin, if I can switch over to you, same day ACH obviously is to me of the 2024 results, which came out not too long ago. To me, that was the headline story, a 45% growth rate year over year, which, usually when you see a number like that, it's because you're working off a really small base. And you guys ain't at a small base anymore. I mean, so that number is pretty remarkable. What do you attribute that to? How are you maintaining that level of growth on a same day ACH, growth curve?
You're right. Glenn. It is remarkable, and it is part of the overall 6.7% growth for ACH as a whole. So it is not slowing down the growth of the rest of the network. I think one big thing driving same day is the business to business use. It was stronger than same day overall. It was 50.5% year over year, and the volume was, the value was slightly stronger as well. It emerged several years ago, and the convenient use case to talk about was an emergency payroll situation. But we're seeing it used for virtually every purpose. It is valuable for business to business, and I think it's proving itself so that once an originator tries same day ACH, they migrate more of their activity to it, more of their new activity begins that way. So I think it is appealing. It has stickiness to it once users begin originating via same day, and it will probably continue to grow at that pace for some while. That's our hope.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of pointed to this. It has not been at the expense of, classic traditional ACH. I mean, it's a
Right.
rising tide on everyone. It's just that's what's phenomenal to me. It doesn't seem to be a cannibalization situation. In fact, there's a session I saw on the Tuesday agenda about why all faster payment types need to be successful, which gets us back to the rising tide lifts all boats concept. And I know
Right.
RTP, the real-time payments network, they're also showing gangbuster numbers. It's pretty fascinating to me, and it's not unheard of. That's kind of the way the system seems to work. And I know the Fed's even documented there's just more payments out there.
There are. And I think you're right. All of the faster payment mechanisms we have available today are somewhat complementary. Our president, Jane Larimer, spoke about that recently in a blog article and made that same point. My background is largely in risk management. And when you think about it, a payment decision is a simple kind of risk management decision. And we typically decide, I'm going to pay this in order to avoid the risk of not paying it. But at the core, every risk management decision is an optimization problem. So when people look at the payment mechanisms available to them, they optimize their choice based on certain characteristics, whether it's timing or the cost or the features such as the ACH debit capability. A batch capability is appealing in some situations. So when people look at their payment options, they're making informed choices that really optimize what they want to achieve in that payment.
Do you find that there's still some adoption hurdles or kind of educational hurdles to overcome, particularly on the same day side? Or are most FIs pretty actively engaged with both classic and same day ACH? I'm curious, do you have to provide different types of promotional materials based on the profile of an institution, size, marketplace, whatever?
I think for most institutions that offer ACH origination capability, they're well aware of same day and will accommodate it if their customer requests it. So it's not so much educating about what same day is as reminding people about its advantages, reminding the institutions, and more so reminding originators who may simply have to ask their institution, hey, how do I do same day instead of conventional ACH?
You think most of them are actually educating the originators, the actual companies making the payments, presumably businesses? They're informed enough to know to ask about it, is what you're saying.
Yes. Well, when we speak to end users like originators, we try to make that point. Ask your financial institution. When we speak to product managers from financial institutions, we encourage them to push same day. And interestingly, I think some same day opportunities exist that aren't on the origination side. I think RTFIs, the receiving institutions, could actually take advantage of same day processing windows to accelerate their returns. If you look at the administrative returns alone, we have 3 return reasons for things like when an account is not found, or it's an invalid account number structure, or an account has been closed. All of those are terminal cases for a transaction. It's not like you can represent it. They're just done. So if you think that only 0.21% of transactions in the network are those types of returns, that's still significant dollars that a receiving institution could accelerate by getting them out a day faster. it would come to over $60 billion a year for receiving institutions to get that credit back on their account one day faster.
Do they control that? Is that something, I mean, is it just again a matter of education? It sounds like the use or the business case, the ROI for that would be pretty clear.
It is a matter of education. In fact, we asked in a recent request for information how many receiving institutions use same-day processing windows for any of their return activity. 59% said that they do, but almost half of those are using it for less than half of their return activity. So I think it's a matter of education that, yes, you can use same-day processing windows to send your returns back, and here are some advantages of doing that.
Yeah, you mentioned that you expect to see the same-day ACH growth to continue, which, I mean, quite honestly, I'll be stunned if that's the case because, I mean, it just telescopes. I mean, that's how long can you keep growing at 40%? But, you know, a couple of levers that come to my mind, you know, higher transaction limits. I know you've already increased the transaction limit, which helps. Potentially more daily processing windows. What do you see as, and I don't mean to put you on the spot to predict or, you know, kind of tip your hand, but where do you see the evolution coming?
Well, both of those that you mentioned are squarely in our sights. And you may have seen that the Federal Reserve put a Federal Register notice out not long ago, back last year, talking about potential changes to the settlement structure that supports the network. So we're keeping a close eye on that because that could enable additional processing windows. A single additional window, a fourth one, would definitely help expand the opportunities throughout the day. And one of the things that we hear most often from end users is that they want higher limits. So we are beginning to do a focused look at what would be the optimum limit to raise the transaction limit to. You know, the vast majority are accommodated by a $1 million limit. What's the next logical gap to make a difference? Is it 5 million, 10, all the way to 99? We don't know, but we want to find out.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting, like you said, it's an optimization exercise because same thing's true with the real-time side that they've actually increased their limits. So you've got the threshold, both in terms of dollar amount and whatever additional risk that might create in the process of it going out the door in a flash. So always interesting stuff. Well, great conversation. I'm sure a lot of these topics will be the kind of things we'll be dealing with in New Orleans too. Stephanie, if people want to find out more about the conference itself, the conference website, probably the best place to go. I know the full agenda's out there now.
It sure is. Yeah. Just head on over to payments.nacha.org and you'll have all the information you need.
And I know there's a pretty good infographic that actually kind of highlighted some of the things we've been talking about, particularly with the growth of same-day ACH. Devin, I think, well, rather than have you rattle off the URL, we'll just include that one in the show notes as well, if that makes sense.
That's perfect. Yes.
Great. Devin Marsh, Stephanie Prebish, see you in New Orleans at Smarter, Faster Payments in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Glenn.
Very good. Thank you.
So as always, I encourage you to check our links, whether you're listening on one of the podcast or audio apps, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, etc. You should be able to get to the show notes. I always post the links to hopefully give you an opportunity to dig in deeper on some of these stories. We'll be posting a variety of links, including the Nacha Payments Conference, the year-end results, and some of the infographics around that, and a blog that I just put together. We talked about this before and had a bit of a conversation around this, not part of the interview, with our friends at Nacha. And Jane Larimer, the president, had actually put out an announcement applauding the executive order that the Trump administration put out, basically calling for the end of the federal government issuing checks, paper checks, and to some extent receiving them. And then pointing out within that just how few paper checks, given how widespread the adoption has been of ACH. So you can see all of that information as well. And I did a blog post around that executive order. I personally think it was rather overblown, and you'll see that if you check out that link. Speaking of conferences, as I said, I will be at Nacha at the end of April in New Orleans. Before that, I will be at the NACUSO conference this very next coming week out in Las Vegas, April 14th through the 17th. If you happen to be heading out that way, please do say hi. Drop me a note beforehand. Track me down there, whether through the app or just Oh, I don't know. I seem to, wind up. I'm wearing a nice prominent name tag. You look for a bald white guy. There's probably about 30 of us there, but I'm one of them. You can find me there. Happy to talk. Love to hear your conversations. What you're thinking about these days. I'll be looking at the next big idea competition players there, and hopefully interviewing a few of them and sharing some of those thoughts on the next coming episodes of the Bigcast. You can always find out more, as I said, about us at the Best Innovation Group website. The media tab there will take you to recent episodes and all these show notes I've been referring to, and you can check out our past episodes. You can also find out a lot more about the stuff the Best Innovation Group's got going on, including the interactive voice capabilities, artificial intelligence, the Innovation Club, all kinds of great stuff going on there. Again, Blue Sky is a good place to check us out. LinkedIn, it's Best Innovation Group. It's JB FinTech for our Grand Poobah John Best. And my name, Glenn Sarvati. And you'll find me via my firm 154 Advisors there as well. New content here every Tuesday, and you'll have some new content to chew on next week. If you check it again, like the podcast, subscribe, whatever you do on your platform of choice, and you'll be alerted when it comes out, or just check back in at the website. You'll presumably find it by the end of Tuesday next week. As always, my name is Glenn Sarvati, and thanks very much for listening.